Last week, I played at Greg's home game, and this is Greg performing a little song and dance number. Thanks for contributing to my vlog. I could definitely use some of your star power. In the previous episode, I shared a very fun hand from this night, Bluffalo Sam versus Greg. Be sure to check that one out. This episode, I'll be sharing a few of my own hands. This hand, I pick up Jack 10 on the button. Everyone folds to the cutoff, who opens to $10. Against a late position open and a player who has been pretty loose, I decide to 3-bet to $40. Everyone folds except for the cutoff, who calls. It's heads up into a flop of Ace-King 5 with 2 diamonds. The villain checks. I have a gut shot straight draw on a board that hits my range really hard. I think this is a good board to double or triple barrel, depending on the run out. I start with a small C-bet of $35. The villain calls. The turn is an offsuit 9. The villain checks again. I don't think this card changes much. I follow through with my plan and continue repping my range. I size up as if I was very strong and protecting against a draw. I bet around pot size and make it $150. The villain check raises me to $375. Not much for me to do here. Easy fold, as my play didn't work quite how I wanted it to. The villain, however, was nice enough to show me his hand, and he had Ace 9. Well played, sir. This hand, I pick up Ace Jack on the big blind. Everyone folds to the button, who opens to $10. The small blind folds. I re-raise to $40 against the button open. The villain calls. It's heads up into a flop of 10-3-8 all clubs. I check. The villain checks back. The turn is a jack. I hit top pair and top kicker, but with the flop action, I think the hand ends here with a delayed C-bet. I decide to be slightly tricky here and check. The villain checks back. The river is a brick. I now go for a value bet of $50, targeting any pair that could look me up, putting me on 2 high cards I missed, and the villain calls. I table my hand, and he mucks. This hand, I pick up King 9 on the button. Everyone folds to me, and I open to $10. Only the small blind calls. It's heads up into a flop of Ace 8-5, all clubs. Another monotone board of the clubs variety. The villain checks. Even though the ace is good for my range, I want to play it as though I was pot controlling on a monotone board, which a lot of people might do with an ace. I check back. The turn is a 7 of clubs. The villain checks again. I think the villain has just given up here. Even though I have nothing but king high, I'm just going to take a jab now in position. I bet $10, and the villain folds. This hand, I pick up Ace 5 of hearts under the gun. For this hand, you'll see my camera phone falling down a few times, and I would readjust. Anyways, I open to $10, +1 and the hijack calls. Everyone else folds to the big blind, who 3-bets to $45. This is an interesting spot. Firstly, the 3-better has been a bit loose, and the 3-bet sizing is quite small relative to the number of cold callers. My hand is not super strong. It was a questionable open under the gun, but I'm definitely getting a pretty good price since I'm not anticipating a 4-bet squeeze from any of the cold callers. I decided to cold call the 3-bet myself. Kind of surprisingly, everyone else folds, which works out good for me as I get to play post-flop in position. It's heads up into a flop of 10-7-5 with 2 spades. The villain C-bets for $40. I only have bottom pair, but I definitely have the range advantage here on this board. Even if the villain had an overpair, it's a tough spot to be in if faced with aggression, because I can rep all the high equity combo draws as well as sets. And I think bottom pair is a pretty good hand to bluff with here. I raise it to $150. The villain calls. The turn is a 6 of clubs. The villain checks. I follow through with my aggression. I can still credibly rep all the sets and 8-9 suited combos here, whereas the villain can only really have pocket 10s as his strongest hand here. I bet $175. This is a sizing that basically threatens an all-in on the river. I don't remember the stack sizes exactly, but I remember calculating for river jam with an SPR of about 1. Of course, I was also counting on the villain to see that as well. He does tank for quite a while, and in the end, the villain finds the fold, and I take this one down. This hand, I pick up Queen 9 on the button. Everyone folds to the cutoff, who opens to $10. I decide to cold call this one. The small blind also joins the fun, and the big blind folds. It's three-way to a flop of 10-9-5 with 2 diamonds. The small blind checks, and the cutoff c-bets for $15. With second pair and the queen of diamonds, which is a blocker as well as a decent backdoor, I call. The small blind also calls. The turn is a queen. Both villains check to me. I spike a nice 2-pair here. Even though it does complete an open-ended straight draw with Jack-8 as well as a gut shot with Jack-King, I can still get a lot of value from flush draws in hands like 10-Jack and Queen-Jack. I bet $60. Only the cutoff calls. The river is a brick. The villain checks to me. I just bet for value now, targeting a 10. I might get looked up if he reads me as missing a flush draw. I bet $100. And the villain folds. This hand, I pick up ace deuce of hearts on the small blind. Everyone folds to the button, who opens to $10. I have a pretty good 3-bet hand here against the late position open, but I've been pretty active this session, so I decide to balance it out here. I just call. The big blind also calls. It's 3-way into a flop of ace 5-6 with 2 clubs. I check. The big blind checks. The button c-bets for $10. I call and the big blind folds. The turn is the 4 of hearts. I check again. The villain bets $20. This might seem like a good spot to check raise with top pair and nut flush draw, but I just cover the board, blocking top pair and draws. I'm not really protecting against anything. My hand is too strong to check raise as a bluff, and I don't think it makes too much sense to check raise for value. I decide it's better to check call all the way and let the villain fire off bluffs instead. I call. The river is a 10, which doesn't change anything. I follow through with my plan and check. The villain bets $85. I think just for a little bit here, but not too long, as it was mostly decided already. I call. I table my hand and the villain shows a bluff. That is the last interesting hand of this session. One week later, I decide to head out to Parq Casino in downtown Vancouver. I haven't been here for a long time. I've forgotten how nice this establishment is, which makes complete sense as this is one of the relatively newer buildings attached to the Marriott Hotel. Also, I believe this is the only poker room in BC that people can sign up on the waiting list online through Poker Atlas Table Captain. Great feature that I think all poker rooms should eventually adapt to, some kind of online sign up. The wait was pretty long, but the waiting area, basically a pretty lavish lounge, was super nice with comfortable sofa seats. As I wait for a seat at the table, I watched the latest Bluffalo Sam vlog where he promises to upload 2 videos a week if he gets 1,000 likes. Now, I did my part. More of Sam is never a bad thing. I just checked and the video has passed 1,000 likes. Sam, if you see this, good luck with that. If anyone can do it, it's you. If you guys only know how much time and energy it takes to make one of these videos. After waiting for almost 2 hours, I finally get a seat at a 1-3 table. Right away, I know that this session will be a short one since I didn't anticipate the long wait time. Let's hope I get into some interesting spots. This hand, I pick up ace-queen at under the gun +1. There's a button straddle to $6. Everyone folds to me. I raise it to $20. The middle position folds. The low jack, who only has a total of $180, decides to 3-bet to $75. Everyone folds and the action is back on me. The villain is basically pot committed with his entire stack here. With 3-bet ranges that are so narrow at these stakes, basically only hands that dominate mine. And not to mention, if I do call $75, I'll be priced in to call off the rest. This is just an easy fold. I let it go. The villain flashes pocket kings to me. Well played, sir. This hand, I pick up 10 jack of diamonds on the button. Under the gun +1 limps. The middle position raises to $20. Everyone folds to me. With this hand in position, I think 3-betting is not bad if our stacks were deeper, but at this stack depth, I'm just going to call to see a flop. Everyone folds except for the initial limper. So it's 3-way into a flop of ace-4-6 with 2 spades. Both the villains check to me. With an ace on board and a flop that I don't really connect with, I just check back. The turn is the queen of clubs. Under the gun +1 now leads out for $20. The middle position calls. Even though the price seems really good, my gut shot is not really giving me the right odds. But the bet being small and with the cold call, both of the villains' hands just can't be too strong here with 2 flush draws on board. I decide to call as well. The plan is, spiking a king would be nice, but if the river is a brick and gets checked to me, I think a big bet can likely take it down. The river is the king of clubs, and I managed to hit my magical gut shot. Both villains check to me. Now my plan has changed. The river is definitely a scare card that completes the backdoor flush, so even if I think my straight is good here, I have to get bet small to get paid. I go for a value bet of around 1/3 the pot at $40. And kind of surprisingly, both villains call. I table my hand and end up chopping with one of the villains with the same hand, 10 jack suited. This hand, I pick up jack 8 of diamonds in the middle position. Under the gun limps, +1 folds. I decide to bump it up to $20, hoping to take it down now, or isolate and play heads up in position. The big blind and under the gun calls, so it's 3-way to a flop of ace-queen-4 with 1 diamond. Both villains check to me. I hit absolutely nothing, but the board does favor my range quite a bit. So with that in mind and 1 diamond on the flop, I decide to go for a small c-bet that I could potentially double barrel if I pick up extra equity. I bet $20. Both the villains call. The turn is the 10 of clubs. Both villains check to me again. This is an interesting turn card. I was looking for a diamond, but this non-diamond 10 actually gives me extra equity as well in the form of a double gutter straight draw. With both villains checking twice, I decide to go through with the second barrel. I size up and bet $100, and both villains fold. At this point, I look up and spot my buddy Trevor. Of course, I go say hi and take a selfie with him. And again, I managed to mess up this photo as it is completely out of focus. Trevor rightfully points that out to me. I tried to blame it on him, but I'm gonna confess here that I actually remember clearly messing this one up myself. So yeah, I should probably not be the designated selfie guy. Back to the table. This hand, I pick up Queen 6 of hearts at the hijack position. Everyone folds to me, and I open to $10. Everyone folds and only the big blind defends. It's heads up into a flop of ace-king-5 with 1 heart. The villain checks. I only have queen high and a backdoor flush draw, but this board does smash my range, so I just c-bet for $10, and the villain folds. This hand, I pick up king-queen at the small blind. Under the gun straddles to $6. The hijack and button limps. I have been pretty aggressive this session, and if I were in position, I can definitely keep that up with this hand. But I don't really want to bloat the pot here, out of position with a moderately decent hand. I just call. The big blind folds, and the straddler checks. It's 4-way into a flop of king-jack-3 rainbow. Great flop for me, hitting top pair. I just lead out for $10 for value. Only the straddler calls. The turn is an ace. Even though it's an overcard to my pair, I'm not too concerned about it. There was no pre-flop raise, so I'm taking ace-king out of the equation. 10-queen gets there with an open-ender on the flop, but I do block that hand. So I continue to value bet, targeting a weaker king, since the villain is a straddler who can very well be holding a random king. I bet $15, and the villain folds. Here are the results of my very short session at Parq. The time I spent waiting was actually more than the time I spent playing. But yeah, in general though, it was still a very fun trip. I got to explore the building and the area a little bit. I validated my car and license plate for free parking in the long term, as long as I'm a customer at the casino. Also ran into a couple friends. So that was really nice. Anyways, results. I bought in for $400 and I cashed out for $446. That is a profit of $46, and the numbers will be shown right here. And that is it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy this video or any of the other ones that you might watch. And yeah, that helps out a lot. I hope you look forward to the next.